Although it's a couple of minutes till 12, I think that everybody's here that is needing to be and expecting to be here. So let's go ahead and call the meeting to order because we've got a pretty full agenda today. Mr. Coley, will you reflect that everybody is here?
So noted.
And everybody has received a copy of the minutes. Is there a motion regarding approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? First is Resolution 1320 regarding adopting a funding policy for KUB's defined benefit pension plan.
Commissioners, I'll remind you that a couple of years ago we discontinued the defined benefit pension component of our plan for new entrants. However, we do have a defined benefit component for existing employees and retirees. State law passed last year is we need a formal funding policy, and I'll recognize Mark Walker to give you that information.
Commissioners, as Ms. Roach just stated, last spring the Tennessee State Legislature did enact a new law which requires government pension plans in the state to have a formal pension funding policy adopted by July 1st of 2015, and also for that policy to be filed with the state comptroller on adoption. The impetus behind the new law was really twofold. There was a secondary reason which had to do with some new government accounting standards which replaced some long-standing accounting standards, and those old GASBs, the GASBs that are being replaced basically said this is how you determine your annual contribution to a pension fund, this is the methodologies that you need to employ to do that. With those standards being replaced, it really left a void with respect to sort of a de facto funding policy. That's one of the secondary reasons. The primary reason was a concern by the state treasurer's office that some of the large plans in the state are not doing a good job of funding their plans. And that concern was borne out in a survey they did in 2013 of all the government plans that are outside of the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System purview. And there's 31 of those plans. So the survey indicated that many of the large plans are not making their contributions each year at 100% level that their actuaries determined is necessary, and as a result, their funded status is relatively low. I'll show you that survey in just a moment, but that was the main impetus behind this law. Now, I'll also say that KUB's plan does not fall into one of those that there is a concern over. KUB's historic and current practice has been to fund 100% of what our actuary determines each year to put into our pension plan. As a result, the plan is well funded and is very financially sound. In fact, when we provided a draft of our funding policy to the state treasurer, the deputy treasurer remarked that if all government plans were as fiscally responsible as KUB, then there would not have been a need for the statute in the first place, which I think that speaks volumes. The survey that I referenced, and we actually showed this chart to the board back in the spring when we were talking a little bit about pension back during the financial workshop. But this is the survey that the treasurer did of all 31 plans that are outside of the TCRS. And they were looking specifically based upon 2012 data, what the funded ratio is based upon market value of assets, and then how well are they doing in funding their contributions. And again, this was for 2012. And you can see of the 31, at that time, KUB had the second highest funded level at 95%. Some of the others, as a point of comparison, you can see MLGW, very large utility, of course, at 81%, City of Memphis, 79%, City of Nashville, 75%, City of Knoxville, 67%. So our funded status was relatively high. I will point out that based upon the most current data, our current ratio is 103% funded. So again, we're in very good shape. The legislature, the treasurer, was also interested in what percentage of your contribution you're contributing, and again, focused on 2012, and basically 13 of the 31 did 100% or less. And if you're not doing this on a consistent basis, if you're going to be below 100%, that is going to impact your funded ratio and potentially impair your ability over the long term to meet your participants' benefits when they come due. That's really what it's all about. So the legislation basically said adopt a funding policy. There's all these elements in the funding policy that need to be there, but the capstone element is right here, that this percentage has to be at least 100% going forward for everybody. And so that again is the major provision that we have to have in our funding policy. For KUB, that's not an issue because that's always been our practice to do that. For some government entities, that will be an issue. For those that have been lagging behind, they do have a 5-year window to get up to 100%. And there's a formula in the law that basically allows them to do that. But if you, whatever your required level of percentage is, if you don't do it, there are potential ramifications in the law. For example, if there's any shared revenue between the state and the local government, that can be withheld by the treasurer. If your funded status is below 60%, any benefit enhancements you want to do to your plan have to be approved by the state treasurer. And then last but not least, if it's a persistent problem and you're continuing to be underfunded, the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System can take over your pension plan, and basically you lose control over the self-management of it. They just take it over, do all the investments, and they require you to make your annual contribution. So none of that's going to be applicable for KUB. Just real quickly, the development and approval process that we went through over the last several months, our Benefits Council, Bill Mason, and our Retirement System Actuary worked together to draft a funding policy. The Retirement System Administrative Committee looked it over. We sent it to the state treasurer just to do an informal assessment. And again, one of their quotes I put on the chart here, but they found our policy to be responsible and reasonable and include all the required elements. So we felt good about that. Upon hearing that, the Retirement System Committee approved it. Staff discussed it with the board's audit committee at their meetings in September and in October. And on October 24th, the audit committee adopted a resolution recommending full board approval, which brings us to today. And if adopted by the board today, we will file it with the state comptroller, and we have 30 days from the date of adoption to do that. So, in closing, Resolution 1320 adopts a pension funding policy for KUB and does direct the President CEO to file it with the state comptroller within 30 days. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any substantial difference in the new plan and the way that we were conducting
Now,
business?
that's a good question. Basically, this funding policy simply represents a codification of our existing practice. There's really nothing different that we've been doing for the last many years with our pension plan.
So I guess it would be appropriate to thank the staff for keeping us at the top of the list and
Absolutely.
not. I wouldn't want to be some of those on that list based on what they're going to have to do.
Yeah, there's several that they targeted in particular when they saw some of those low percentages, that this is what this law is really directed at.
That's great. We do appreciate it.
Another key component to it is that, as I mentioned, we no longer have a defined benefit plan going forward. Many of these folks still do that, so they have not made that tough decision.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a motion regarding Resolution 1320?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Coley?
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Cannell. Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Pennell.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Resolution 1320 has passed unanimously.
And that's a one-time reading, right?
Correct.
Correct. Resolution 1321, requesting city council approval of the engagement of Coltrane Justice to provide audit services.
Commissioners, I'll remind you that the city charter requires that we have an independent accounting firm to do our audits. I'll recognize kind of a dual team, Mark Walker, to tell you the initial components of it, and then I will recognize Ms. Keisha Thompson, who's the chair of the Audit Finance Committee, to finish the report.
Commissioners, real quickly, I'll just review for you the selection process that staff and the audit committee went through in bringing us today for a recommendation from the Audit Finance Committee. This past year's audit, our financial audit for fiscal year 2014, marked the final year of a 3-year audit engagement we had with Rutherford Moss and Company. And if you include the previous 5 years before that Rutherford Moss audited KUB, we had an audit relationship proposals for professional audit services to cover our financial retirement system and project health audits. That RFP did anticipate a 3-year engagement going forward for whatever audit firm is selected. We received a total of 9 proposals, which is, going back over my tenure here at KUB, that's the most we've ever received for an audit RFP. We did have an internal team evaluate or screen the proposals, including our manager of accounting, 2 of his staff accountants who are CPAs, and also our retirement system financial analyst. The results of their screening, we met with the audit committee on November 20th and discussed those results. At that meeting, the committee selected 2 of the 9 firms to interview. Those interviews were held last week on December the 10th, and today the committee brings to the full board a recommendation for one of those firms, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. And also to mention to you that city charter does require the city council must approve the selection. Real quickly, a summary of the 9 proposals. They were all pretty good proposals, pretty sound, high quality. They all basically made the case that they could have the base qualifications to do our audit. There were some distinctions with respect to price. On the low end, the average price for the 3-year audit was $128,000 bid. On the high end, it was $242,000. So there was a wide discrepancy there, but most of them sort of clustered around the $150,000 level. And as a comparison to what we paid Rotherham Moss last year, it was $153,000. So actually 6 of the 9 proposals were equal to or less than what we paid Rotherham Moss last year. Another big distinction was in the location of the engagement firm, or the engagement team for the firm. 4 of the firms that bid were from Knoxville, have offices here in Knoxville. And the others were regional firms, including a firm from Nashville, Jackson, Tennessee, Chattanooga, actually one from Roanoke, Virginia, and then we had one bid, a national firm actually from Madison, Wisconsin, that had previously provided us some accounting advisory services. So there was some distinction in location. Less distinctions in experience. Pretty much all had experience in auditing government utilities and retirement system plans, and in their methodology, pretty much consistent in their approach to the audit. But based upon a review of those proposals, the committee did select 2 firms to interview, and those interviews were held last week. Culture and Justice, which is a long-standing Knoxville-based firm, and then Henderson, Hutcherson, and McCullough, which is a regional accounting firm located in Chattanooga. They're noteworthy. They sort of have a niche in auditing electric utilities, and they currently audit 3 of the 8 largest TVA distributors, including the Electric Power Board of Chattanooga. But at this time, I'll recognize Commissioner Thompson as chair of the audit committee to discuss the committee's selection and recommendation to the board.
Okay, the Audit and Finance Committee, we held interviews with both those firms on December the 10th, and really both firms were really, really good. They did an excellent presentation, and either one of them would have been capable of doing the audit for us. But the committee actually felt that the Culture and Justice firm is the overall best fit for KUB. In selecting the firm, we noted that the firm had a great reputation and a high quality of accounting firm, and it's located in Knoxville, so that was a plus. The firm's experience in auditing and other governmental utilities and its competitive price was also a plus. I want to thank the audit committee, Joe, Eston, and of course our board chair was there for coming to the meetings and participating. And we recommend the approval of Resolution 1321 requesting City Council approval of the selection of Culture and Justice. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
I will consider that a motion. Is there a second to the committee's motion?
Second.
All right, any discussion, questions? Anybody? Mr. Coley?
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Cannell. Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Pennell.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams. Resolution 1321 is passed.
Thanks. And thanks for the work on that, because it's not much fun.
I had a blast. I look forward to it every time.
I would say that anybody that no reflection of any accountants. If anybody wants to sit through interviews of, a bunch of interviews of accounting firms, that's fine. So, okay. Minta, I think you have a president's report.
Commissioners, a lot of reminders today. Let me go back a couple of years. You know we've been working on a leadership development program, and a component of that is a strategic development process. We had 3 strategic projects that have been worked on during this time. You've already heard the report outs on 2 of those. Those included recommendations for how we should go forward with regard to the water plant, and the other with our workforce mix. Today we'll have a final report out, and that is the recommendations of staff related to smart grid deployment at KUB. I'll first recognize Gabe, and then Don Musty will follow from that report.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. As stated, we have been working really hard on this project. It is a unique and a neat opportunity. A good analogy about our recommendation for smart grid before it even starts. If you think back just a few years ago, we all had rotary phones. Well, at least some of us did. Then we upgraded to touch tone phones. My kids don't even know what I'm talking about. Then we upgraded to touch tone. Then if you're really cool, you got cordless phones. Then we evolved to a flip phone, a cellular phone, and now today we all have smartphones with data plans. Smart grid is very much like that. You get down to it, it's an evolution of technology and equipment and tools that allow us to run our utility much better. So today I'll take some time to explain what we're looking to do and our recommendations going forward. Our team was given a mission to look at technologies, look at what people are doing with those technologies, look at what we've done with our pilot that we've been doing for the last 3 years, and then come to you with the recommendation for the funding of this plan. A little bit of highlights of the smart grid. We've talked about this before. It was a focused area in the UT Fort Sanders area. It was a part of a DOE grant that we received. We funded $6 million. The DOE grant funded $3.5 million. It allowed us to put in a very concentrated area of meters, towers, fiber optics, and let them all intertwine and work together. It's been a very successful project. As you can see here, we did tie all the system together, and what's in the gray is the area that was, all the meters were changed out, commercial, residential, hospitals, the like. It was very successful, no doubt about it. We saw instant benefits, it shortened restoration times and outages, a lot less truck rolls. We estimated we saved 4,000 miles in truck rolls just in that 3-year period. It saved us $50,000 in media reading alone. And the neat thing was we got real-time information back. You're seeing instantly what's going on in the system at the time. So your reaction to that, your ability to take care of problems, something as simple as turn the meter on or off is now done remotely, not having to have a person physically go out there and do that thing. Was a very big benefit of that. So our recommendation today is going to be that we roll out go from a pilot to a system-wide deployment. It will be phased. We'll spend 4 years changing out 380,000 meters, every meter, gas, water, and electric. We'll spend 10 years upgrading our backbone, our communications backbone, our SCADA system with a fiber optic system. And then lastly, once these technologies get installed, put in strategic tools, and I'll talk about those later, to make our system stronger and more efficient and more reliable. So what's the price tag? $102 million. Half of that is meters. A big portion of that is the meters themselves. The 380,000 gas, water, and electric meters. $35 million is the fiber backbone, around 200 miles of fiber to tie all of our substations and critical structures together. And then $11 million in what I call the smart tools, the switches, all the equipment to make it more automated. Payback conservatively is less than 10 years though, because these tools give us a lot of flexibility, a lot of efficiency, and a lot higher reliability. So what are the major components of a smart grid system? There are four major parts. 3 of them are really hardware, and I'll talk about those a lot. I'll turn it over to Dawn to talk about the customer tools, which are the back end of this kind of, as far as what you get from it. So first of all, we'll talk about the communications network. We have installed already the 18 towers needed in our system that allow us to have wireless connections to all the meters. So that's done, that is finished and in the air. And so as these meters are deployed, that backbone is built. Secondly, is built the fiber optic network and replace that aged copper telephone lines, old SCADA systems that we have to a much faster fiber optic system that allows us to control those devices quickly. You can't do it over a wireless system. It's just there's too much delay in that technology. So this allows us to control the system better. And then, like I said, overall, 10-year rollout to get all that done in that period of time. System automation and control, this is where I get kind of excited because I need gadgets. That's the engineer in me. As you see some of the devices at the top, these are the devices that we'll communicate with. Today, for instance, on the far right is a faulted circuit indicator. It lets us know where the problem is at. Today I have to drive out there to see it working. I can't talk to it. With this backbone built, that device tells us, hey, the problem's this direction. And that's the kind of things that will save a tremendous amount of time and effort. On the far left, you see a set of smart switches. Those are switches that actually say, I see a problem here, I don't see it there. Let me isolate this problem this direction and close this direction. And they are minimizing the impact to our customers. It allows us, and basically the bullets say it best, it allows us to be able to do things from our offices and make decisions and deploy the right people at the right locations quickly. It also improves reliability a lot. I take this future step as an analogy to how successful our vegetation management program has been and the reliability it's gained. This is the next step to that next level of reliability that we'll see from there. Metering, it really drives the whole thing. The meters are what tell us what's going on, how the system's handling, how these systems are responding. We have issues going on out there. It talks back to us and we tell what we need to see. It does have automatic notification of outages or power quality issues. You know, today a phone call has to be made by a customer to say, I've got a problem. This gives us alarms. This tells us, hey, this is not normal today. Something's going on here. Voltage and power quality data is very, very important. A good story we had from this past January, as you remember, we had a really, really cold snap. And we had a lot of wet mains break. Well, a lot of customers had a lot of problems on their side of the meter. We're looking at our data one day and get this alarm of this customer in Fort Sanders just keeps going off. And this is new to us, so we're learning a lot about it. Look, and we see a normal and unusual flow of water. It's constant at this customer's house. We call the customer up and say, do you have a problem on your side? This is not normal. You're running a pretty good flow of water consistently. Do you have a problem? She's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, we're seeing high flow rates consistently. Do you mind checking your house while we're talking to you? She goes, oh, sure. She walks down, gets to her basement and goes, holy cow, I've got a leak down here. Can you help me get this thing off? So we send a crew out, shut her meter off for her, and get that problem resolved. That's the kind of stuff we're going to have that we have not had the ability to do going forward. Ultimately, it will benefit the customers as much as it does us. We are going to be able to run an efficient system, but these tools will make us more efficient. And with that being said, I want to turn to Dawn and talk about more of those customer benefits that we have.
Well, as exciting as the engineering stuff. This, I think, is the real thrill. As Dave mentioned, the customers will have access to information real time to help them manage their consumption. And I think there's a perception sometimes, well, I don't need to call KUB, they know I'm out of power. And that's not always the case. So going forward with the smart technology, that will be the case. We will be able to detect on an individual basis a residential house if they have an outage and text them, let them know that. So that's really exciting. Service reconnects, connections. Every semester we have 10 to 15,000 reconnections when UT goes in session. Well, right now, as you all have heard before, we have an automated request to start-stop, but we don't really have an automated way to do that in the field. Well, with smart grid technology and smart meters, we will have that. So that will expedite those reconnections. And the big thing, as you see in the third bullet, avoids on-property interruptions. Many of our customers have fences. Hey, I really don't want you on my property, dogs, things like that. The access issues can be a real challenge. So with the smart meters, that goes away. We will not have to arrange with you to lock your dog up or open your fence or any of those things going forward. And I think one of the most exciting parts of this is the interactive tools that in the future will be available to our customers through the use of the smart meters. An example of this is a screenshot of our customer portal. This is an actual customer. And we picked this time period for a reason. This is, the billing period is January 11th, 2014, from December 10th to January 10th. So as you all are well aware, we had some extremely cold temperatures in January. And what this shows, and you have drop-down windows, you can look at usage, you can look at cost per day, different services, the weather. You can have an overlay like this slide does. The weather's the blue line, or you can have the average consumption. So there's different options available to the customers. But I want to call to your attention, on January 5th, the average temperature was 43 degrees. And if you look at, just for that one day, that customer's consumption was $8. So it cost that customer $8. Just 2 days later, on January 7th, the average temperature was 9 degrees. And the consumption cost on that one day was $23, almost 3 times as much. So this will really, I think, help educate our customers. It's sometimes very confusing when, I leave my thermostat on 68 and I see these fluctuations. And we, through our call center, try to explain, well, it's the ambient temperature, it's this and all that. And they kind of, glaze over sometimes. This is a picture that I think everyone can relate to. They can drill down and really start to manage their utility consumption. So we're very excited about, in the future, as we deploy, rolling this out to our customers.
Dawn, how quickly after a particular day would a customer be able to log on and see that? Is it immediate?
Environmental benefits, which go hand in hand with the customer benefits. As Gabe mentioned on our truck rolls and our meter reading, last year our meter reading contractors drove over 600,000 miles through. We had 21 cycles, 43 routes. So you're talking 858, 900 different routes. So using the EPA conversions, that equates to 25,000 gallons of fuel, or 442,000 pounds of CO2 that will be removed from the environment if you don't have to go out and actually physically drive those trucks and read those meters. So that is obviously a real positive on the environment. Gabe mentioned the water example. Same thing with energy and being able to look at our system and through power loss and the details and the real-time information we'll get back is a huge benefit to the environment. So in summary, this is how we think of it. Smart grid is very much like Century 2. We have aging infrastructure, aging kind of analog mechanical meters that are reaching end of life. And this basically takes us with the new technology and replaces that. It improves reliability. We know when the outage is. We can be more deliberate and precise as far as deploying crews. We talked about the customer and environmental benefits, and all of the $102 million and all the details and the pace will come back to the board in February with a workshop to share with you the details of that, what comprises that. And then later on, with the board's approval, we'll come back with a communication plan, customer plan, the really exciting stuff, and share that with you and get your thoughts. So with that, Gabe and I would be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
How many cities use smart grid?
Good question. When we started the pilot, you know, we had nationally 20 to 30%. We're in some phase across the country. By next year, we're looking at 50% of utilities will have installed smart meters. And so what we looked at, you know, in addition to the pilot, which gave us really good information here locally in our system, we also looked at what's going on nationally. And our methodical approach has really helped us because a lot of the kinks and a lot of the concerns as the technology has matured, it really worked in our favor. Then we looked at the TVA service territory, and about 75% of the 155 distributors are in some form of installing smart meters. Then we looked at Nashville, Memphis, Huntsville, and we are right in line with where they are. Some are a little bit ahead. As you know, Chattanooga ETV a substantial grant, so they are fully deployed. But others like Huntsville are just planning next year to start rolling that out. And Nashville pretty much like we are. So we are right in line with our peer utilities. But it is predicted. When we started, it was, what is that? Now you got basically half the country. Utilities have smart meters. Customers have smart meters on their house. Yes?
This is going to take place over a 10-year period. During that period, I would say that things will become even smarter. How do we deal with that?
Well, that's actually happened during the pilot. I think Mr. Black, we talked about home display devices, and they were going to be the thing. And during the pilot, those became obsolete with smartphones able to do the same thing. So I think we have in our plan that we'll share with you enough flexibility to adapt to those things. But this is very much the way of the future. Mechanical meters, they are not making those. And so technology, just like everything else that we do, is always evolving. But we feel pretty confident that we're headed in the direction and have enough latitude to adjust accordingly.
We've actually been very grateful that we did the pilot and laid back a little bit to see the advancements occur that have already occurred. So we can take advantage of that.
Thank you.
And will we have to stay in that same area and spread, or as soon as it's time to replace an old meter, will we be able to go out and replace it with a new, or will we just be expanding from where we already are?
Well, the plan is actually, we talked about the cycles, meter reading cycles, to just be very deliberate, start with cycle 1 and replace and go around our system. And obviously, as we have meters that malfunction, and we'll be replacing those with electronic meters, that the plan is over 4 years, you would basically make it around all of the service territory with the new smart meters.
So when we did when we did the smart meter, I know we had a certain area. I thought because we had to have something there in that area, but we'll be able to go out and just replace them in, okay. That's where I was getting confused.
Yeah, we have the towers that gauge our whole system, so we've got the backbone there.
Okay,
Now it's just a matter of systematically replacing those in our different meter reading routes.
I'll remind you, we picked the area we picked because we were in partnership with the University of Tennessee. So it gave us the University of Tennessee, it gave us the student housing, it has a lot of cut-ins and cut-outs. It gave us industry, Dow Chemical, it gave us the hospitals. It gave us commercial on Cumberland. So it gave us a small microcosm of our customer base so we could study that in the process of the pilot.
So it didn't have anything to do with necessarily we couldn't do it anywhere, but
No,
we chose that because
we
of
chose
those.
it because it had strategic value for us.
It's a nice sample.
I have a question. Is North Korea going to be able to hack in? I'm kidding about North Korea.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Seriously.
There are, and I think, as Ms. Rhodes said, it's worked in our favor to wait and test the technology. We have the privacy, the IT, the security. They have been part of this process with the pilot and will continue to be involved. So that obviously is a concern with our customers, that's a concern with us. So we have built-in mechanisms for that, and that will continue throughout the deployment of this.
And I will add to that. We worked
there's a open records as part of that law that specifically, the legislature came and passed that we do not share consumption history and it was in regard to the smart meter information that's available. So I think our customers, and we'll share that with them, have a lot of protections as far as keeping that information confidential, so that they are the ones who are using it and can access it.
So eventually, that's will eliminate our meter readers, right?
The contract meter readers, over several years, we've talked to they're very much aware of smart meters, and their jobs are really evolving as well. As technology changes, they're adapting. So much like years ago when we took that from KUB and contracted it out and retrained our employees and the contract meter readers are in the same mode. They'll still be installing smart meters, replacing meters, so their industry is adapting across the country as these meters are installed. So they're obviously in a state of flux, but I think they fully recognize with the saturation of smart meters where that industry is going and the importance of getting training on the new technology. So I don't think that we'll be surprised, and they're taking steps, as I understand right now, to retrain their folks so that they're familiar with the technology and continue to offer valuable services.
Could I ask, just, how does the, is it all wireless, or is it, how does it work?
Actual meter.
I mean, how does it?
It's a wireless. It's a wireless. It's a cell phone card. I mean, I don't have a better way of describing it. It's actually a device inside the meter that communicates and talks to our tower, and that tower relays back to KUB. But it's a wireless device. It's not a communication hardwired between the meter and the communications, the protocol.
And is it going to be, you know, with all cell phones, there's dead zones, and how are we going to deal with those, or where the meter's underground, or it's in some basement, or something like that? How do, I mean?
That was a very good question, very applicable to what we looked at. When we started this, and Jamie is very knowledgeable in this area, we put in 18 towers. In theory, you probably could done maybe 12 to 14 towers. We want to have overlapping districts. Strength of signal was a big deal to us. So we kind of put it through what's the worst spots we could find, let's test it there. And so we feel like we've built these 18 towers and have overlapping penetration into the meter. So we have not found, and I don't think we will find a dead zone, dead spot, bad spot, outside of, I guess, a bunker that someone built maybe, but I don't know how it's going to be possible. Because our meters are either on the outside of the buildings or on the outside part of the building. We have thought that through very thoroughly.
And then the other question I had is it relates to theft of utilities.
Yes.
Is that proven to be easier with smart grid, or harder, or?
A lot harder. Harder. You want to describe them?
Smart grid, in our pilot phase, I believe it was 47 tampers that we caught pretty early on. So you can catch that real time. If someone disconnects, it's in the system, and then all of a sudden, the meter's going again. So it really is a deterrent. We talked to other utilities that are fully deployed, and that is one of the main benefits they cite is the dramatic decrease in tampering and theft of service. Because you know right then, you don't have to wait till someone's in the field and see something unusual. You'll have alarms that let you know that meter should not be working. It's disconnected. So, and like I said, in the pilot, we've already encountered that.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Very hard.
Don't let me.
Sorry, one more question. You said that we're going to have the meters deployed within probably a 4-year period, but the fiber is over a 10-year period. Is it just the case that the meters will work with what's there existing, but as you bring all of them online, you're going to need that fiber to make it faster, more reliable? I'm a little disconnected on those two theories.
good deployment strategy to get the best benefit. So the sweet spot, if you want to call it that, is a 4-year deployment. Anything longer, you don't get your return on investment. Anything shorter, it just costs too much to do it that fast. Fiber, it is surely at 200 miles of string and wire is a lot to take on. It's more about the automation and control of our system.
Okay.
So it's gonna be about all those other tools, and I didn't do a good job of separating the two, but
No, that's okay.
it's, while they all work together, one is not dependent on the other to exist.
Okay.
Dawn, I don't know how this works, but I assume that on our end, we've got one or more people that are just sitting there looking at a computer or a bunch of computers and reading these things. When we're fully deployed, are we gonna need a whole bunch more people, or can the same number of people that are doing it now do that?
We estimated it may be 3 to 4, and it may not be a full-time job. The thing that the pilot enabled us to do, because you get a tremendous amount, as you can imagine, of data. So what do you need, and what do you need to hone in on? So we've gone through that process. And we have folks right now that monitor consumption, differences in gas consumption on a daily basis, and it's a manual process. So we're really excited about the opportunities to just get those alarms highlighted real time. So we're doing that now, but it's a very tedious process, so we do not anticipate that we'll have to hire a bunch of folks to force through the data. If anything, we'll have it much faster, and it will highlight those key areas. And that's already proven to be the case in the pilot area.
And where's that house?
The water in your house?
No, well, wherever the,
Oh, house, yes, it is.
Number campus.
correct. Anything else? All right, thanks, guys, good report.